Blessings in the name of the Lord Jesus. Welcome to Paraclet TV, making disciples through the power of the Holy Spirit.
So these are the important elements for the research methodology, and your group is already done with the research design, your research locale, geographical, as well as the psychological aspect of your setting in terms of the space, yung place mismo where you're going to conduct your dissertation. And when we speak about research local, concentrate more on a specific and particular geography of your location, and then focus more on a peculiar characteristics of your setting. Say, for example, if your university is among the top universities in the Philippines or even in the world, that must be noted in your research locale. Or if that is the only one stationed in a mountain, that must also be placed in your those peculiar characteristics. But if the characteristics that you're going to mention are commonly mentioned for the same venue or the same space, don't mention that, because it is already understood by all generally. Then you have your respondents of the study, the instrument of the study. We have done with all of that. Now, in the instrument of the study, I just want you to make it clear that the arrangement of the items in your questionnaire, if you're going to do it quantitatively, then it must be arranged chronologically. And what's the basis of arranging it chronologically? You go back with your statement of the problem. How you arrange your statement of the problem from the low taxonomy going up to the level 4, which is the highest taxonomy. That must also be the arrangement of your questionnaire. But it's good to have a general characteristics discussed in the participants or the respondents of the study as reflected in your questionnaire. You can put some of the profile in the questionnaire and then include that in the discussion of the participants of the study. Now, the indicators that will appear in your instrument must be a synthesis of your theoretical framework. Again, all the indicators or the items that will appear in your instrument of the study must be found or synthesized from the theoretical framework, or in other terms, in your review of related literature. That's the objective foundation of the instrument of the study. Why are you required to read literatures? Why are you required to read studies that are related to your dissertation? Because it is the foundation of the items that you will include in your instrument. So each item, when a panelist is so meticulous and asks you, where did you get 2.3 item or indicator in your instrument? Your answer must be pointing backward to your theoretical framework or the literatures that you have read. Okay, so right after the instrument of the study, of course, you are required to always introduce in the beginning of the chapter. An example of this. This chapter addresses the question of how the problem will be investigated and includes discussion of the following elements: the research design, the respondent sample, the sampling method, the instrument use, and the statistical treatment. These are all needed for your dissertation proposal. Now, for this morning, one example that I have put here is the intended learning outcome at the end of the session. 100% of the learners with 100% level of proficiency will be able to discuss validity and reliability of instrument and to apply the mechanics in establishing the validity and reliability of the instrument. So let us see. After the construction or the formulation of the instrument or your draft, and most often than not, you will be using a survey questionnaire. No, most of you, although there will, of course, some or a few of you will be using interview schedule or observation checklist, but all of them, an interview schedule, observation checklist, survey questionnaire, must be subjected to the establishment of validity and reliability of instrument. So let us see. When we speak about validity of instrument, it is already defined, and I know you know this. It measures what it intends to measure. So meaning there must have a congruence between your research objective and your introduction vis-a-vis with your statement of the problem, vis-a-vis with your instrument. Because you could not have an accurate answer to your statement of the problem if your questionnaire is not jiving with it. So there must have a congruence of your question reflected in your instrument, the content of it, if there are criterion, if there are predictors, if there are sub-variables in it, as well as all the indicators mentioned, are answers toward your statements of the problem. Then there are types of validity. The phase one, of course, will be the lowest type of validity, which is called phase validity. And of course, you're going to observe its logic. It is also similar with the so-called logical validity. When we speak about logic, it's more of a common sense. No, we are using our common sense vis-a-vis with your logic. No, and that is called the phase validity. When we speak about the phase validity, we look at the scale that is being used in the instrument. So obsolete, the scale of 2 graduation, obsolete, the scale of 3 graduation, and most commonly used, especially in the international research, the 4. 5, if you have neutral, the neutral is already excluded, make it 4, because we don't want to put our participant or the respondent to be in the same place. We want them to decide the election. We want everybody to speak their minds by votation, not to be in the same place of no comments at all. Because I just read in the in one of the postings in the Facebook, if you have no comment, it is also similar that you are siding on the negative parties. Okay, so the scale commonly used is 4. No neutral and no uncertain answers for that. Then, of course, when we speak about phase validity, we are using the so-called intuitive adjustment, meaning the intuition or the must be based scientifically. So we use experts to look at the phase validity of that. Where it also includes the technical aspects, the font to use, as well as the ink, something like that, the spaces, if that is double spacing, because when you are looking into the time as well as the interest of your participants, their motivation to answer depends upon on the first time they will look at your instrument. When just handling your instrument, they are inspired to answer, it means it has a very good phase validity. But right after handling your instrument, medyo tinamad silang sumagot. Mababa ang face validity nun. So meaning the face validity is just looking at the features of your instrument. Next to it will be the content validity. So it is a bit deeper as compared to number one, because in the content validity, there is a need of reading. There is a need of comprehending the different contents and elements of your instrument. Look at the items and indicators, which of course is based on the research objective or on the statement of the problem. Okay, so the content validity is judged by reading in toto and comprehending the items of the questionnaire. And a good evaluator will read the theoretical framework or the review of the literature so that he will judge accurately the content validity of the instrument. Then you have your construct validity. We have already discussed one time about the meaning of construct. Construct are those concepts that are combined together, and they are results of analyzing and understanding theories. If you have many theories that serves as the framework of your study, of course, you're going to have constructs or combination of variables. And the combination of variables or the constructs are embedded in the questionnaire. And only experts will see if the construct are properly embedded in the questionnaire. And then the next one will be the criterion variable, and which these are now, when we speak about criterion, how scores are related to external criterion. So the variables are sometimes called criterion variable, and there are also variables that are called predictor variables. Now, in a criterion validity, this is divided into two. You have the concurrent validity and the predictive validity. When you want to judge or you want to look at the validity index of an instrument and using the 4.1, the concurrent validity, here is your submitted instrument and it must be compared to a standardized instrument. Say, for example, you are looking into the level of performance and there is already a standardized instrument for level of performance. The validity of your submitted instrument will be compared to a standardized instrument which measures the same variable. No, ang tawag natin doon is concurrent validity. Your newly constructed compared to a standardized instrument measuring the same criteria or the same criterion. And then of course, the measurement of that can be done by mere judgment, but that can also be measured by statistical formula of relationship. Then number 4.2 will be another type of criterion which is called predictive criterion. No, from the word prediction, an expert can assess if the instrument can predict something out of it, can predict a behavior. It can also predict a performance in the future. Say for one example is an aptitude test. An aptitude test is an example of a test used which has a very high validity index in terms of predictive criterion. We usually use the aptitude test when a senior high school is wanting to enroll in a program in college. So for a good counselor, guidance counselor to help a senior high school where the senior high school will perform better in the college, so an aptitude test is used. Okay. So, what's the mechanics for the validity of instrument? The mechanics for the validity of instrument is just the commonly used method of judging the validity of instrument is by the use of experts. Experts in the field. Who are these experts? These experts in the field are usually those that are already in the doctoral degree program. They are already having their names lengthened by EDD or PhD. We call them commonly as experts. And so when your dissertation is about human behavior, you can have experts about PhD on human behavior. If your dissertation is about educational management, you can have EDD as your experts. If your dissertation is about more on quantity, a higher mathematics, you need a PhD in mathematics as your expert. So your experts will be chosen depending upon the type of design or the type of methods that you're going to use, even in the content of your dissertation. Connected yung type of dissertation mo doon sa experts na kukunin mo. And at least 3 experts will do. Now, the experts will just look at what type of validity are they going to look at to prove the validity index of your instrument. And you usually use another instrument like this so that your experts will not invest much time in looking at your instrument. So we usually produce another instrument out of our proposed instrument. And this is, and one example of that is this one, to look into the phase, the content validity, as well as the predictor validity. Direction of that, as you see in the projection, please assess the attached questionnaire and rate the acceptability of the indicators used in this questionnaire by checking the appropriate column. So here are your indicators. So you have number 1, the major variable, causes of student tardiness as an example. And then your sub-variable, the family in the environment. And then there are at least 3 indicators under each sub-variable. So what the experts will do, they will just check which column is the assessment of each indicator. So HA will be highly acceptable. The indicator is 76 to 100% acceptable. I have given this an example because this will help you to be more objective and more clear in your proposal. This I call the definition of your Likert scale. Most of your submitted questionnaire and in your write-up, I have commented define your Likert scale. This is how you're going to define. It is not enough that you put highly agreeable or very good, but there is a need of a guide quantitatively to be more measurable and objective. So you put the definition like this. Now, 1 to 25, 26, 50. And I just want also to remind, especially those who are not so learned in statistics, we use range. No, we use range to have an objective graduation per Likert scale. So range equals highest score minus lowest score divided by the number of cases. So the graduation is equal in each scale. So you use that. So what the expert will just do is to just to check if the major variable, the sub-variable, as well as the indicator especially are to be accepted and included in your instrument. So kung okay sa kanya, ilalagay niya lang highly acceptable, acceptable, less acceptable. Now, if you will find less acceptable, and especially not acceptable. So may remarks na ilalagay dyan. And that will be now the basis of revising or enhancing your questionnaire until a final one is already produced out of it. So that's how validity is established. Okay, now after the validity, there is the so-called reliability of instrument. So reliability, of course, is the consistency and stability of results. One practical example for that is we are confronted, especially as teachers or as instructors or professors in the field of teaching, we sometimes look at the formative exams. So in scientific teaching, when you find that your students are performing well in the formative exam, you can give the summative exam. That's the science of it. You give formative so that when the formative exam shows a very good performance of all the students, then you can do the summative exam unless there is a good or positive result of the formative exam. No need of giving the summative exam. So it is the summative is dependent to the formative exam. So how will you know it? By looking at the consistency and the stability of results. Most often than not, if our students are getting higher scores in the quizzes, we predict that they will, of course, have a good performance in our long exams or the periodical or the semestral exam. Ang tawag doon, there is a consistency and stability of results. Now, how will you do that? There are types of measuring the consistency, stability of results or the reliability index. How will you measure the reliability index? Number one is by using the test or retest method. No, test, magbibigay ka ng test, and then magbibigay ka uli ng retest, the same questionnaire. Then measure the reliability index by comparing the X and Y or the test or the retest. No, alam na alam ni RG yan. Okay. Or else, you can use internal consistency. Number one, split half. Only one test, then split into half. If that is 100 items, the 1 to 50 is compared to 51 scores, 51 to 100 scores. Then look at now the relationship of the the first half, compare it to the second half. Or you can also use another method of comparing the odd number indicators to the even number indicators, and then compare the consistency of the scores. And then there is 2.2. You can use the Coder-Richardson formula, or you can have the test scores compared to the parallel form. One example, in a classroom scenario, you have your midterm exam. The scores in the midterm exam must be compared to the 5-time quizzes exam. Compare mo yung dalawa so that by using the Coder-Richardson formula. Okay? Now, how will you establish the reliability index? Of course, the reliability index, the highest score must be 1. Positive, 1. Now, if it's about 0.6, 0.5, there is something wrong with your instrument. So there is a need of doing a dry run or a validity review. So in your reliability of instrument, there is the mechanics, of course, is using a dry run. A dry run, say for example, if your participants are on the majoring biology, fourth year, you can have at least a representative of them, which will be not your actual participants. At a bit of 5 to 10 will do for the dry run. no, a bit of at least five. Of course, you have learned in our previous discussion that the higher the number of sample, the higher is the credibility of the results or the accuracy of results. But 5 to 10 will do for a dry run. Okay?
The question is, how about if you're going to use a developed questionnaire already and it is copyrighted and published? How are you going to like acquire that instrument, sir, if you are going to adapt?
Okay. So all you have to do is to write to the author or to the researcher who formulated the so-called, we call that as standardized instrument. When we speak about a standardized instrument, it's already past the very high validity and reliability index, because you can only use an instrument in research if there is already an acceptable validity and reliability index, about I think 0.75 or 75% validity, valid and reliable. Now, if there is already one that was used in research and that's published by a reputable organization or university, before using that, you must, of course, have a letter of consent submitted to the owner if he is allowing you to use that for your instrument. We call that as parallel instrument, no? Yung standardized na meron ng available. Although, personally, I suggest that one of the contributions of a very good of a very good doctoral student is his own instrument. So it's better to produce your own instrument and experience the life of being first construct or develop, then second is the establishment of validity and reliability. It's good to experience that, no, compared to if you will just adopt one from the standardized instrument.
Share Jesus. Subscribe and share Paraclet TV. Go, go, go.